Only this Monday I did a stream on the upcoming balance changes of 9.1 and it took me 70 minutes plus to talk through all the details of what is coming next. But on this video I want to point out my favorites and want to let you know what you cannot miss, what you must not miss before heading into the next update, so you can prepare yourself and grind the tanks before that. So let's talk a bit in general about the upcoming changes first. Basically every tank got rebalanced. There are very few exceptions. Those are mainly the very new tanks like the KPZ-50 or the Type 71. But almost all the other tanks got rebalanced, and mainly of course the currently dominating tanks like the IS-7 or the 60TP, they got nerfed, and other tanks will rise to the top again. That's how it is. The meta has to change over time to keep the game interesting, and we are seeing some very interesting rebalancing on this update. I really like to see that. Everything is very subtle, and some tanks of course are getting major buffs, but everything is kept subtle to just have the strengths of each tank to be more emphasized on. So you really have to play for the strength of a tank and cannot just play each tank like the other one. Mainly we've got a change to the mediums first of all, and the autoloaders as well. The mediums mostly got a little bit more mobile. They are getting a little bit less terrain resistance, meaning that they have better acceleration and traverse speed. And also they will all receive AP shells instead of their APCR shells, which means their effective penetration values will increase quite a bit, because the AP shells do have better normalization values. That is a mechanic I'm not going to get into detail too much on this video though. Also, the mediums mostly receive, or rather lose, about 50 to 100 hit points, so that has another small impact on their gameplay there. Autoloaders then, the big changes that we are getting there, those are really significant. Many autoloaders will receive better DPM, either by boosting their reload like on a T57, or just getting intra-shell reload boost equipment, which you know from the FE405 already. But the Batchet and the M60 will also get it. And yeah, this, and also the T57, this will be quite a nice thing. And some of the autoloaders like the AMX50B and also the FE405 will receive another shot in their magazine, which is quite a big thing. Okay, let's point out the main changes here. Out of all the tanks that are receiving changes, I wanted to collect a list of the tanks that are getting the best changes or the best buffs here, so that you know what to grind next. FE215B mainly, you maybe have heard about it already, will receive plus 50 millimeters of HE penetration, which is really a big thing to this tank, as you will be able to HE a lot more sides and sometimes even the front of some tanks like enemy heavies, lower plates even. And yeah, this will have a big impact on this tank. Also, it will have 150 hit points less and 1 second faster reload, which gets this tank closer to where it has been in the past before it got nerfed over and over again. So the FE215B, although it gets a little bit of an armor decrease in the front, it will be a very nice tank again that can definitely be played and be a lot of fun. Next up, FE405. I already mentioned it, it gets another shell in its magazine. It will have 4 shots then in one clip, increasing its burst damage from 1380 to 1640 overall. You may notice already that the math, it doesn't quite fit, because the alpha damage will be decreased by about 50, so it just has only 410 alpha damage, which is still quite a lot. To also balance this tank out, it will have a faster intra-clip, 0.5 seconds less on the intra-clip, and a 4-second longer magazine reload, which is still absolutely fine. Keep in mind that the FE405 will now be able to clip over half of the hit points of any heavy tank. So in a platoon, you might be able to delete one enemy tank within the first 30 seconds of the game. Also, the AMX 50B, as we are talking about the 4th shell on the FV, is worth mentioning here. It also gets a 4th shot. The AMX will also have slightly worse alpha damage, 20 alpha less, leaving it at 380 alpha damage. And also the reload will be increased for that. So yeah, you do have 1520 burst damage of the clip. That has a little bit longer of a reload, 6% or 6 seconds longer on the reload the AMX will be. And it will have a little bit less accuracy of 0.4 seconds more. At this point, I also want to mention TVP is also getting a little bit of an intra-clip buff there, 0.5 seconds more, less, sorry, which means that this tank will only have 1.5 seconds of intra-clip reload. Combined with a better mobility, this tank might be a very nice pew-pew gun to just run around the map and be very annoying to the enemies. It also receives a little bit more magazine reload, but that doesn't bother too much here with a TVP. But there is a tank that does have an even bigger change, in my opinion at least, and that is the WZ-113, the Chinese heavy tank, which has been quite nice so far, but nothing too great, to be honest. It will now have a significant armor boost, or just a lot more armor in the front and also on the sides, so that you can really side scrape quite well with the WZ. Also, it will get 8.34 degrees per second faster hull traverse speed, which is really a big thing, because the hull traverse really was not too great on this tank so far, and it might be a lot quicker because of that. The top speed also increases slightly. But yeah, the WZ-113 will be a lot more versatile and a lot more dangerous with the kind of armor that it has then. I guess we're going to see a lot of that one in the tournaments and in the random battles as well. As we are just on the topic of heavy tanks, we also have the IS-4 to get a major change there. Which is not just as big as the WZs, but the IS-4 gets a little bit of a buff on the armor. The weak spots will be basically deleted. The weak spots will be completely removed. There is one, the hatch in the front, and also the one to the side, which you may know, but it's not the most popular to shoot at. So yeah, that still, it makes a difference. You cannot penetrate this tank and side scrape anymore at all. And so the IS-4 will be quite strong in the future, although it gets slightly worse accuracy, but it still gets 150 hit points more. That's really big change there on the IS-4. Okay, quick interruption here. If you are enjoying this video so far and want to support my channel, please consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, see the link down below for subscribing to Twitch, where I do all of my streams nowadays. Let's move on to the next one, which is the T110E3, which has already been the strongest TD in the game without any doubt. It will be even stronger because this tank will get 40 plus alpha damage. On top of it 640, so it will get 680 in total. The DPM will be slightly decreased for that, but still a higher alpha damage is more important, especially if you're having such a nice armor. You can just out-trade the enemies so easily. Also, it will be a little bit faster still on the traverse speed. And you may know this tank also has the special speed boost and the reticle calibration. So yep, the E3 is going to be a very nice tank to play quite soon with 680 per shot and an HE of 1000 damage. You just out-trade the enemies easily. Let's move on to some mediums here. As there are some very interesting changes. I already mentioned many are getting better mobility and also the AP shells, of course, for better penetration. But let's go on to the 140 at this point. The 140 will also receive 120 horsepower engine power more. And this means it will basically have light tank characteristics there on the mobility. It will just be on par with the Object 907. And also the Object 140 gets 10 meters more view range. Does not sound like much, but it also gets better concealment while standing. So the 140 will definitely be a very nice tank to sneak around the map quite soon. And also it will receive a PPR HD armor model, however you call it, which just slightly changes the angle of the armor. For balancing that one out, we are getting a little bit of an armor nerf in total numbers, yet the armor does not change in the effective value there. Then there's also the Leo one, which I'm really quite excited for. It is already a very nice tank in my opinion, yet it lacks the armor a little bit to keep up with the other tanks sometimes. So the Leo one will have an even better DPM quite soon, because its alpha damage will be increased by 10. Does not sound like much, but you will soon have 360 alpha damage then, which raises your DPM to 3313, and therefore it will absolutely dominate in that regard. Also, the Leo one will receive the reticle calibration, a very interesting choice here by Wargaming to give a medium the reticle calibration now, and also the gunpowder for the increased shell velocity. Not absolutely needed on the Leo. I will still try it out, I guess. And this tank will be the king of all snapshots with this accuracy. It will just be outstanding with the DPM also. Very nice to see the Leo getting this kind of buff there. But now we are getting to my absolute favorite of the upcoming changes here of the next update 9.1, and that is the FE4202, which will receive 73 millimeters of hull armor on top of what it already has, and 20 to 49 millimeters of turret armor, which basically makes this tank look like a chieftain once it's hull down with full gun depression. Just keep in mind there, other tanks will have to spam heat at this tank, talking about the low penetration mediums mostly, but they will have to spam heat, while the FE42 can potentially just hash their front, therefore out-trading them significantly and just having a really good time there, also bouncing off a lot of shots. FE42 will be the king of the next meta for me personally, as I'm a medium tank player and I just love to see this change. I think it might be a little bit over the top, but we will have to see and figure it out. Okay, let's come to some extras here. This is basically a list of the tech tree tanks that I had in mind. Those tanks you want to grind already, but there are some more premium tanks that are also getting some very interesting changes here. And that is, for one, the Asconk, which will receive also 150 hit points more and 25 millimeters more of side armor, which means that this tank can be played even more aggressively and can just hold up against all the other enemy heavy tanks. And for balancing that one out, Wargaming just decreased the turret reverse by about 10 degrees per second, which is really quite a lot, but I think the Asconk will be able to handle this, as it is rather a slow, heavy tank anyways. And then we are getting to the T95E6, which is one of my favorite buffs also here. It is a collector tank at the moment, so not everyone might have it, but for the experienced player this will be a very lovely buff here, as it gets -1 second of reload time, which is really quite a lot for the 8 point something seconds that it has at the moment. And also it will be faster. The top speed will be increased by 8 kilometers per hour. Yet this will be balanced out a little bit by getting 25 millimeters less turret armor on the cheeks. But yeah, with this kind of mobility and DPM, this will be the perfect tank to counter mediums. It will be a lot of fun, I guess, and I'm excited to see that one. And then we still have two more tanks here on the list, and that is the Badger. First of all, that receives a significant 10.4 degrees per second traverse speed buff, combined with a plus 25 millimeters of side armor and the -1 second reload time. It will be super hard to circle this tank and much harder to penetrate it, as you cannot really shoot its sides that easily anymore, which are quite strong anyways. And just keep in mind that 25 millimeters at an angle are just way more than that and will be super hard to penetrate. Badger might really cause a lot of trouble in the future there. Now we come to the end of the list, and that is the Object 907 for me. it will receive slightly better accuracy, and I'm really glad to see that, because so far the Object 907's accuracy really was not the greatest at all, and it was really quite annoying to me. And finally it is getting better accuracy, and also it is getting reticle calibration just like the Leo, and the improved gunpowder to make this tank more of a flanking sniper tank. Will be quite interesting to see, but now that the 140 is also getting buffed, the 907, I don't know if there is much speaking for it anymore. So yeah, that's it for the list of these changes. I'm really stoked for many of those and looking forward to playing those tanks. So just to conclude again, here to summarize, we have mainly the 113, which will be super nice and super strong. Then we do have the FE4202. Definitely worth grinding now, especially if you're an experienced player. And then we also have the FE405, which receives a really big buff there, especially for the experienced players, I've got to say, because it's still quite tricky to play with the huge hull and also rather weak armor. If you are not quite on the level yet, then the E3 and the WZ113 will be your choices, I guess. Let me know down in the comments below what tanks you're looking forward to grinding to, and maybe what tanks you will definitely still buy from the premium tanks. This list is certainly not complete, but those are really the major buffs and nerfs. We will see more in the future. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch as well, in the link in the description below to see my streams live on there. Goodbye.